Stop for a second. Just 1 second. Think about the person you've lost, not about where they are now. You've thought about that 1,000 times. Think about something different. What if they're trying to reach you right now? What if the signal is already coming through, and you just don't know what frequency to listen on? Most people never ask this question seriously, because we've been taught that talking to the dead is either religion or madness. Either you're on your knees in church praying, or you're in a dark room with a con artist medium milking your grief for cash. Like there's no third option. But Edgar Cayce, a man who entered trance more than 14,000 times and described the afterlife with a precision that official science still cannot explain, said the third option doesn't just exist. He said that communication between the living and those who have passed isn't the exception. It's part of the architecture of reality itself, and it has specific tools, specific rules, and specific dangers nobody ever warned you about. Today, we're breaking it down piece by piece. Which channels of communication are real, how to use them correctly, why certain techniques open a door to the wrong place, and what Cayce considered the most powerful and most safe way to hear those you love. Let's start with what most people get completely wrong. When we say communicating with the dead, we automatically picture something external, a medium, a Ouija board, a seance in a dark room, something that comes from outside and crashes into your life like an uninvited guest. Cayce flipped this logic on its head. He said the most direct channel of communication isn't outside you, it's inside you. It always was. You just didn't know that's what it was. Cayce described consciousness as a continuous stream, one that doesn't break with death but changes form. When the soul leaves the physical body, it doesn't fly off to another planet. It shifts to a different frequency of the same space. Think of radio waves. FM and AM exist simultaneously in the same air, in the same room right now. You can't see them. But if you have a receiver tuned to the right frequency, you hear everything clearly. Cayce said, human consciousness is exactly that kind of receiver, and it has modes of operation where the signal from the other side comes through without interference. The most powerful of those modes is sleep. The first tool, dreams. Not because it sounds poetic, but because in sleep the physical mind, wired with all its noise, its skepticism, its daily static, steps aside. And what Cayce called the subconscious mind rises to the surface. This is the part of you that never slept, never died, and never broke its connection with those you love. Cayce was specific. If you've lost someone close and want to make contact, start working with your dreams. Don't wait for something to happen on its own. Work at it deliberately. Here's how he described it. Before bed, don't scroll your phone, don't fall into empty noise. Sit in silence for 5 minutes. Say the person's name. Out loud or in your head, it doesn't matter. Not a request, not a question, just the name. With love. The way you'd call out to someone in the next room. Because, Cayce insisted on this, they are literally in the next room. Different frequency, zero distance. Keep a notebook beside you, because what comes will come quietly. An image, a feeling, a word you catch at the border between sleep and waking. That strange flickering state scientists call hypnagogic. This, Cayce said, is where the signal is cleanest. This is where the barrier between worlds is thinnest. You'll wake up and say, it was just a dream. Maybe. But Cayce suggested asking yourself one question. How did you feel? Not what you saw, but what you felt. Because real contact always carries a particular quality of presence. Not anxious, not frightening, but unbearably real. People who've experienced it describe the same thing every time. It was more real than reality. Not a metaphor, literally a different density of experience. But here's what changes everything. Not theory, a real story. North Carolina, 1921. A farmer named James Chaffin dies, leaving his entire estate to one of his 4 sons. Marshall. The other 3 get nothing. The will is legal. The case is closed. 4 years later, 1925, another son, also named James, starts having dreams. Not vague impressions, not a general sense of presence, specific, repeating, insistent dreams. His father appears to him again and again, wearing the same old overcoat he'd worn in life, silently pointing to the inner pocket. Again and again, the same thing every time. The son wakes up, writes it down. On the third occurrence, he tracks down that coat at his brother's house. In the inner pocket, a note, in his father's handwriting, "Read the 27th chapter of Genesis." The family opens the old Bible. Between the pages of the 27th chapter, a new will, dated later than the first, written to divide the estate equally among all 4 sons. The case went to court. State of North Carolina, 1925. A real courtroom, real records, real witnesses who verified the handwriting. The new will was ruled valid. It changed the distribution of actual property. By law. Because a dead man managed to transmit specific information to his living son through a dream. Information the son could not have known any other way. Cayce read about this case. He said, "That's exactly how it works." Not mysticism. Mechanics. The second tool, intentional meditation. Cayce made a distinction most people miss entirely. There's relaxation meditation. You let thoughts go and simply rest. That's useful. But that's not this. There's intentional meditation. You enter the silence with a specific purpose and a specific person in mind. That's a completely different process. The mechanism he described. When you drop into deep meditation, your vibrational level, the frequency of your consciousness, rises temporarily. The soul of the person who has passed can, in turn, lower its frequency to meet you, 2 consciousnesses tuning toward each other from opposite ends of the dial. When they meet in the middle, contact is made. What might you feel in that moment? Based on accounts from Cayce's readings, warmth, sudden, unexplained warmth, or a scent connected to that person, perfume, tobacco, baking, or a light pressure on your shoulder or hand when nobody is near, or words, not as sound, but as a thought that arrives from somewhere that isn't you. You recognize it precisely because it doesn't feel like yours, a different cadence, a different vocabulary, sometimes an answer to a question you hadn't even spoken out loud yet. Cayce warned, this takes practice, not because communication is complicated, but because we need to learn to distinguish our own thoughts from an incoming signal. The first weeks feel like tuning an old radio by hand, a lot of static, occasional flashes of clarity. Then it gets cleaner. The third tool, letters. Write them letters, real ones, by hand. Not on your phone, on paper. Because the physical act of writing engages different parts of the brain, different layers of consciousness. Because when you write, you formulate, and formulation is already a directed stream of consciousness, and a directed stream of consciousness is already a signal. What do you write? Everything you didn't get to say, everything that's been sitting in you. Not for anyone else, just for them. You don't need to reread it. You don't need to show it to anyone. Write it and let it go. Cayce described this process as clearing the channel. You remove what's creating interference in the line, unfinished conversations, words never spoken, forgiveness never given. All of it creates static, on both sides. People who practice this describe the same phenomenon. After writing a letter of farewell or apology, the quality of their dreams shifts, as if the channel genuinely clears. The Chaffin case confirms this almost literally. The father kept appearing to his son persistently, night after night, specifically because an unfinished matter remained unfinished. The moment the information was delivered, the dream stopped. The work was done. Now, the most important part. The part people usually don't talk about. Cayce was absolutely consistent on one point. Not all channels of communication are equally safe, and this isn't a religious prohibition, it's a practical warning, drawn from what he witnessed in his readings again and again. Here's the logic he built. When a person dies, their soul, depending on how they lived and what state of consciousness they carried into the crossing, lands at different levels of afterlife existence. Most souls move forward, toward light, toward their soul group, toward the next stage. But some, especially those who died suddenly, violently, or who were bound tightly to the physical world in life, remain close to the earthly frequency, not because they're evil, because they're lost, because they haven't yet understood that they've died, or because they refuse to accept it. And when you open a door, through a Ouija board, through an unprepared séance, through any practice that simply says, "Whoever's there, come in," the first ones through that door are exactly these souls, not because they were looking for you, but because they're closest to your frequency, nearest to the surface. Cayce used an image that's impossible to shake. He compared it to fishing at night on an unfamiliar lake without a flashlight. You throw out a line and pull something up. You can't see what it is. Maybe it's what you wanted to catch. Maybe it's something else entirely. And now it's on your hook, and getting it off might not be easy. That's why he insisted, any deliberate opening of a communication channel must begin with intention. Specific, clear, directed. Not anyone who has passed, come contact me, but a name, a specific person, a specific love, a specific relationship. This isn't superstition. It's basic safety, like a lock on a door you're choosing to open. The fourth tool, and the most underestimated. Cayce called it silent knowing. There are moments when you simply know, not think, know. You turn your head at exactly the moment something happens. You feel the urge to call someone. And it turns out that at that exact minute, they were in a dark place. You think of someone for no visible reason, and then learn that something happened to them at that hour. Cayce said, "This isn't coincidence. This is an incoming signal you received, but didn't recognize as a signal. Those who have passed are constantly trying to reach the people they love, not because they're lonely or suffering. In most cases, they're better than they have ever been, but because love doesn't know what stop means. It keeps finding ways to express itself even through changed circumstances, through thoughts, placing images and memories into your stream of consciousness, through coincidences, which technically aren't coincidences, but coordinated events, through other people. Someone suddenly says exactly what you needed to hear, in words you never expected from them, through music in a song that plays at the exact moment you're thinking of them. Cayce suggested a simple practice. Keep a signs journal, not to prove anything to anyone, but to train your attention. Write down everything that feels like a strange coincidence in connection with the person you've lost, the date, the time, the circumstances. After a few weeks, read back through it. The patterns you'll see won't turn you into a believer in magic. They'll make you see logic where before there was only what looked like chaos. James Chaffin could have said, "just a dream," too. But he wrote it down, more than once. And then he went and checked. And now, the most important thing of all. The question Cayce returned to in every reading connected to communication. Why do you want this? Not as judgment, as honesty, because the intention you bring to opening this channel determines everything, the quality of the contact, its safety, and what you actually walk away with. If you're seeking contact from love, from wanting to say, "I love you," and hear the same thing back, this channel is wide open. Love, Cayce said, is literally a vibrational frequency, the highest one available to consciousness at any level of existence. When you enter contact from that frequency, you are automatically safe. There's nothing dark at that frequency. Darkness simply doesn't resonate with it. If you're seeking contact from fear, fear that they're gone, fear of being alone, inability to accept the loss, the channel opens, but with interference. Fear lowers vibration, and what arrives at a lower vibration isn't always what you were expecting. If you're looking for a specific answer, that's a neutral intention. It works, but it requires care. Because the desire for a specific answer can make you hear what you want to hear, rather than what's actually coming through. Chaffin wasn't looking for an inheritance. He was simply listening to what kept repeating, and verifying it. One last thing, the most personal. Cayce said, "The most powerful tool of communication with those who have passed is your own life. Not a session, not a meditation, not a letter. The way you live each and every day. When you do something good, when you show the kindness they valued in you, when you step into what they believed you were capable of before you believed it yourself, you're not just honoring their memory, you're literally continuing their work in the world. And they feel it. Not metaphorically, literally. The way they feel everything that happens to the people they love. Cayce called this the living connection, more direct and more constant than any meditation session. Your life is a message, every day, in every choice. So here's the real question. Not, how do I reach them? But, what are you saying to them right now, through the way you're living? Because they're listening. All the time, without intermediaries, without special techniques, simply because love never stopped. It changed form. Like James Chaffin's old coat, the man who wore it is long gone. But in the pocket, there's a note, written with love, still waiting to be found. Drop a comment. What sign from someone you've lost did you receive but couldn't explain? Chances are the explanation was simpler than you thought, and a lot more tender.